Shana Tova. It was nice, right? It was nice. Maybe we'll repeat it next year. My invitation these high holidays, for those who came yesterday night and this morning, is not to talk about the issues of Tikkun Olam, very indeed necessarily, but to talk about Tikkun Atzmi. And this is the concept that I want to put in the table. You all know about Tikkun Olam. You all know the importance of Tikkun Olam, of repairing the world. I want to introduce for those who do not know the concept of Tikkun Atzmi, of repairing ourselves. And this morning I talk about how we debate, and this night I want to talk about contradictions. How do we manage our own contradictions? And the title is Own Your Own Contradictions. And the message is simple. I will elaborate, but in a tweet, or now in an X, the answer will be, and the X will be, own your contradictions. It's okay not to solve all the contradictions that you have in your hearts. It's okay not to solve and not to find an answer of all the different thoughts that you have in your heart and in your mind. And it's okay many times to think something and not to act accordingly. Let me explore the idea. In the Torah, the most holy book of the Jewish tradition, and we were just panim el panim in front of the Torah, is a book full of contradictions. We don't want to admit it, but the Torah is full of contradictions. There's passages in one book of the Torah that contradict another. There's stories in the Torah that they look very similar, but they are very different. There's names that do not correspond. There are information about how ancient life was that wasn't exactly how ancient life was according to the archaeologists. There's many contradictions in the Torah. And throughout many, many generations, many Jewish sages, starting in the late antiquity, tried to solve those contradictions. Especially the rabbis in the Talmud. When they saw two passages of the Torah or the Bible that they seemed that they were contradicting one to the other, they find a way to solve it. The Talmud does that, Rashi does that. All the Jewish rabbinic tradition is about to solving contradictions of the Torah and the Bible. But if you will think for 1 second, if God is almighty and God wrote the Torah and he gave us the Tanakh, why there's contradictions? He didn't have a good editor to edit all the contradictions. It would be much easier and we wouldn't have to solve. So there's rabbis, especially the Rav Kook, the first chief rabbi of the land of Israel, that he says, no, my friends, you understood everything wrong. It's not our task to try to solve contradictions. Maybe here on earth, in our little minds, we need to think that we need to solve every contradiction. But maybe in the divine realm, maybe in God, maybe in His Torah, contradiction have a place. Because many times when you try to solve a contradiction, you get one idea, you have another idea, and then you have a nuance between the two ideas that they fail to accomplish and to understand fully what both ideas were trying to say. So the Rav Kook says, leave the contradictions there and try to embrace those contradictions in the Torah and give yourself place in your heart to hear both voices. There's a beautiful dictum in the Tosefta. Dictum is a high word. I like to use it every once in a while. There's an idea in the Tosefta that we need to make our hearts big enough, like a big house, in order to allow to have room for those who say that something is forbidden and those who say that something is permitted. Those who say that this is good and this is bad, right and left. We need to make our hearts and our minds big enough to allow diversity of different opinions from outside us into our hearts. My invitation tonight is not to do only that of others' people's opinions and ideas, but with our own ideas. How many times you contradict yourself? Sometimes you think something and 5 minutes later you think exactly the opposite. How many times you hear someone says, this makes sense. And then you hear another person say exactly the opposite and says, this makes sense. How many times you want to do something, really want to do something, you think and you know that's the right thing to do, and then you do exactly the opposite. Many times if we do not understand how to live with our own contradictions, those contradictions can kill us. They put a lot of pressure on us, trying to think that we need to know all the possible contradictions in our lives. And I want to claim this night of Rosh Hashanah that the idea of no contradiction, the principle of no contradiction of Aristotle, is a Greek idea, it's not a Jewish idea. The Jewish idea is the Bible, is the Torah, where contradictions find their place. When there could be stories slightly different or complete different ideas, and you need to learn how to coexist with them. But unfortunately, in this case, for many others, it's a good. The Greek thought came into the Jewish world. In the 4th century before the Common Era, we were conquered by the Greeks, so many ideas from the Greek philosophy of no contradiction came to the Jewish people. So the rabbis started to react to that, and they tried to think that there could be no contradictions in the Torah. But there are contradictions. And it's okay to have contradictions, that's my claim. Many times I thought in my own life more like the Greek point of view. That when I thought two different things, I need to decide. Is this or that? I could not have two different political views, philosophical views. I need to choose. A while ago, I freed myself from this pressure. And I want to invite you at the beginning of the year to free yourself from this pressure too. And I want to share a couple of my own contradictions. I want to be a citizen of the world. I want to be completely open to modern society, but I also want to be proudly Jewish and form a Jewish family. And I can be open with you. I think every human being is the same, but I want my kids to marry into a Jewish home. This is a contradiction. There's no way to solve this. This is a contradiction. And it's okay to have that contradiction. Let me share a second one. Because as I told you, I'm not looking through the window, I'm looking through the mirror to what happened to me. I want everybody to have a very good income. All the employees here at Temple Kolamir, I want everybody to have a better living. And many times I know that I have a much bigger salary than some of our employees. And still, I do not go at the end of the month and cut a little bit of my paycheck and I give it to other people that earn much less than myself. And this is a contradiction. Because I really believe that they deserve better and I can live with a little bit less. But I do not do it. And I assume most of you do not do it either. And it's okay. I really want to lose weight, but I love fast food. Don't the contradictions pressure you? It do to me for a while. I want to point out this evening the general idea. The main point of being a critical and self-critical thinker is not to avoid this type of contradictions by always adhering to the Greek principle of no contradiction. Instead, it's about the ability to point a finger at contradictions. We do not need to solve all the contradictions in our life, in our societies, in our communities. Rabbi, what you do on Kolami, this contradict this. My answer is yes, good point. Let's continue. Not every contradiction should be resolved. Education should give us the possibility not to live a life free of contradictions, but the capacity to point out where there's a contradiction between our values and our practices, between what a politician says and does, between what our religion teaches us and what we feel, but not then to try to find a theory that explains everything. We should learn to live those contradictions, not fight them, but to find a place for each one of them in our lives. I got lost. Sorry. It could happen.
It's a great sermon. Really enjoying it.
Yes. Okay. I think I found myself. Look at this quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. You know him? A writer from the 19th century. He said, "A foolish consistency is the hobbling of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. With consistency, a great soul has simply nothing to do. He may as well concern himself with the shadow of the wall. Speak what you think now in hard words, and tomorrow speak with what tomorrow thinks in hard words again, though it contradicts everything you said today. Speak today with hard words, and tomorrow with other hard words, even if they contradict themselves." This is what Emerson said over 150 years ago. Many times we believe that we need not to contradict ourselves, but we are contradictory human beings. And it's good. We need to learn. For sure, we need to learn the best way to improve ourselves. In the things that we think that what we preach is not exactly what we do, maybe we change what we preach or we change what we do. Another writer, Walt Whitman, said, "Do I contradict myself? Very well, then I contradict myself. I'm large, I contain multitudes." Normally, if you see a TV show or a gossip show of the news, they will always have politicians and recordings of the same politicians 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, saying exactly the opposite. And we get crazy. Look, I told you. But only from the political party that we do not vote. Because it's from the political party we vote, we find excuses. No, people change, ideas change, society. But if it's the other political party, we cross them over. That's it, finito. But how you would expect a real human being not to change their opinion after 5, 10, or 20 years? The only problem is when they lie. The only problem is when they hide the contradictions. And what I want to say today is, if it's something about your past that you do not like, an idea that you do not like about the past, do not hide it. Says, yes, this is what I thought before. This is what I said before. This is what I stand a couple of years ago, 2 days ago, and now I change. Being free of the contradiction is not to be liars. It's just to be honest of who we are and tell the world what we want to be. And just to finish, the poet John Keats describes 3 negative, indispensable to growing into a mature human. The experience of being a pest, of getting lost, and of being powerless. And David Berliner said, "I would like to add to this list also the ability to discover and accept our contradictions, even if at times we struggle to renounce them. We are celestial beings. We contain heaven within us. We are rational and mystical, optimistic and realistic, universalist and particularist, wanting the common good and personal success, wanting to help everyone and every cause, but also to enjoy a moment of peace and tranquility. We want to achieve the noblest goals in our life, but also we want to watch TV without worries. Many news articles concern us, but then we quickly turn to the entertainment or sport section. We inhabit these contradictions. That's why every year, in just a few days, in the night of Kol Nidre, when we were going to ask God not for forgiveness for last year's transgressions, but from those we will commit in the upcoming year. We already know we are human, all too human. This is my invitation this last night of Rosh Hashanah and this New Year. Not to try always to overcome the contradictions, but to discover them, to embrace them, and to learn to live with them. Shana Tova u'Metokah.